Good evening and welcome to tonight's Hammer Show. My name is Ru and today I'm very excited to be joined by my fellow WP candidates. We've got Harpreet, we've got Lue Ping, we've got Fadli and also Jasper with us tonight. Today we'll be covering section 3 of the manifesto, inclusion and equality, and I'm very excited for where we're going to go with this tonight. So, now that we've had our introductions, I'm going to start us off with a little surprise.
Okay.
So I've got with me, I've been holding these pens here with me, and so we pass them around and everyone takes a pen and a piece of paper. And I'll tell you guys what to do.
All right.
We usually do this in our Sengkang town hall, conversations town halls, just to get people a bit warmed up and you get the brains going and the gears engaged in the brain. So I think tonight I'm going to ask you one question and you're going to give you maybe 2 minutes to answer it. And then just whatever comes to mind.
So all of us.
All of you are supposed to write this down,
okay.
and then I'll give you further instructions after you've written it.
Okay.
The question tonight is, if you were the Emperor of Singapore and you had one policy to change, what would that policy be?
Oh, wow.
2 minutes, anything.
Wow.
There we go. Be as wild and creative as you want. When you're done, just fold the piece of paper. And you can pass the paper back to me.
See,
No judgment, don't worry.
No, my writing is not.
Okay.
I didn't really write the thing.
What's the phase we listen, but we don't
Judge.
We don't judge.
Yeah, no judgment here.
It's a real tough one, because you've got 1,000,001 things you can think about
that's
changing.
right.
And
So normally when we do this in our town halls, we then give, just don't open it yet.
Yes.
So I'll just hand this out. So when you open it, I want you to read it to yourself, and hopefully you can read it, and then get your pen and rate it from 1 to 5 on how much this idea resonates with you. Not so much whether it's a good idea,
Yes.
how much does it resonate with you? Okay, so you can open and read it now.
can we change? It's
It's yours.
No,
it's
it's
mine.
fine.
It's
Then if
okay.
it resonates to you, it's a 5.
okay.
Unless you've changed your mind.
No, I haven't changed my mind. 1 out of 5, is it?
Yep.
5 being most important.
No, most resonates the most.
5, resonates the most.
Okay, then just pass that around to the next person and just swap it around.
Yes, and then?
And then do the same.
Oh,
Rate it
okay.
at the same time.
Okay. Wow, okay. This is,
There are
Okay,
considerations.
Swap it around and
okay, all right.
I'll keep passing to you. Yeah.
So
Okay, hold on,
I want to change
hold
mine.
on, hold on,
I
hold
want
on.
to have like compulsory handwriting lessons for everyone.
one
so we can-
point.
It's you. I can see you.
Penmanship.
Yes, but
Okay, so we will just hang on to the pieces of paper and then you can just add up the numbers on that. Okay, so Fadli, your
so mine is make it compulsory that classes in school are smaller.
Yes.
I wonder who.
It's 19.
19, okay, excellent.
Sorry, that's mine.
Resonated with me too.
That's mine.
19. Okay.
I had the benefit of teaching, right? So when I was teaching in school, I taught in the gifted education program. So the classes are small. They are 25 each. But along the way, I also do higher ability mainstream classes. So usually I'll teach the one level, which is 2 classes of our GEP class, 1 mainstream class, right? Or high ability. I tell you honestly, the difference between a 25 and a 40, massive. Massive. The number of contact time I have as a teacher, totally different, right? With 25, it's not a pure divide, right? But you will have more brain space to think about what do I need to do with this kid? What should I do next? How do I actually make sure that he move forward? What is he lacking? How can I get him to grow? How should I shape him, right? What do I do with him next? 40, it becomes like a factory. So I feel very strongly for this.
Well done.
No, I mean,
Add another
sure.
perspective on this. I mean, I hear that the stance is really on academic outcomes. You're saying that larger class size doesn't really make a big difference. My other perspective really about the well-being of the students and also the teachers. Right, I think we actually sort of neglected the teacher's perspective as well. So, I mean, it's really quite tough handling 40 students. If we can reduce it to 25, I think we can do a lot of good for the well-being of the teachers as well.
Yeah, no, and I think it's also very important because, I think Lue Ping touches on a very, very strong point that, a lot of us think of, how do we measure, again, maybe we'll come into this a bit later, but how do you measure what is a successful policy? What do you measure success to be? And I think in Singapore, so many times we look at GDP is good. We look at very hard data. So things like we say, oh, we're doing really well in the league tables. Therefore, why fix something that's not broken? And for me, a lot of the time, there's so much that the system can do to support beyond those those hard measurements of what ranking are you going to get this year in terms of the league tables. And I think that's something that maybe we don't do so well in.
The best education systems around the developed world, they are structured around smaller class sizes like that. And we have a group of concerned parents in Singapore who have set up this ground-up initiative, this work called Every Child SG. And smaller class sizes is one of their core proposals. And their reports, their proposals are really worth sort of looking into. And so it's a shout out, to the parents who continue to just spend the time producing these very high quality proposals and reports.
Okay. Okay, that's my one.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I think it'd be good if we lower the voting age to 12 because
12?
I'll get voted in. Okay, because no more PSLE.
Oh, right. Sorry. I thought, right. Aha.
No more PSLE.
I suspect every parent out there would also.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, I think for me, unfortunately, at my work, I do see the worst effects of our pressure cooker academic system. So I really feel strongly that as adults, even though we want to really teach our children to be more resilient and know how to cope with life stresses, but as adults, we should also try our best to remove all the environmental stresses that we can, right? So. And PSLE is definitely one of them. I went through 3, okay, I can tell you it's stressful, okay. I say as if it's my PSLE, but of course my kids' PSLE.
Yeah, but parents'
but
it's
parents'
yours.
PSLE.
Yeah, it's the
Yours.
parents'
Yours.
PSLE as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm really for a true train program where our 12 years old can really blossom at their own time. They don't have to really force themselves to, I have to be up to speed at age 12, and if I'm not, then where do I go?
My understanding as well is like, the way the brains are developing at that age actually make them even more vulnerable to stress. So it's not like, the stress for 11 to 12-year-old, the effects are actually different compared with, I'm talking to experts here, but I think there's something that, we need to consider as well. So I think, Harpreet,
Harpreet, that one is mine, and the handwriting is bad, and you will not be able to read it.
This?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This one I need. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So this is mine. You will not be able to
Okay.
read it. Yeah. Can I just
will need help.
I would like to make Singapore a more kinder place, a
Yes.
more compassionate place.
I remember.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that I would try and have some kind of basic income for people to just live and get by. I think it will abolish a lot of the issues of poverty, both the primary issue of poverty, the trying to get by day to day, trying to eat. People don't have to depend on handouts and charity.
When I did my candidate introduction yesterday, and one of the things I proposed was that it's time to just put an end once and for all to elder poverty. It resonated online with so many Singaporeans because we see it and we just feel it shouldn't be happening. And it can be done because if you followed some of the writings of Mr. Yeo Lam Keong, former GIC economist, right, for quite some time he's written about ways in which we can actually completely eradicate this at very little cost to our society. It's a matter whether we can summon the political courage to do this and say, as a society, this is a priority and we want to do it.
People could come out and say there is no such thing as poverty in Singapore. And I think that is the first step in the problem, acknowledging that there is poverty in Singapore. And I think that's why I believe in the Workers' Party's call for an official poverty line, and that's where we start. We acknowledge that there is this issue, and we acknowledge that you do need a certain level of income that to survive in Singapore, to live in Singapore, and some individuals don't meet that level and they make compromises. And
it's an interesting idea, an important one, to decide as a society what our official poverty line is. Because in corporate life, we set KPIs. We don't just say, let's do our best and let's see how. We set targets and then we work towards them because we know that is what we want to do, and the official poverty line is exactly that. Sorry, Ripping.
So at the point that I think not only just live a life, but live a dignified life, right? Because they also need to have social connectedness, take part in activities with the society and so forth. I think that's another thing that we should really advocate for as well.
Often, when we make these points, sometimes the counters that we hear to that is, but look at welfareism. How do you how eventually, society is going to age. How are you going to look for that, going into the future? How do you combat some of the issues where, you always get examples being raised of, in certain countries where, people decide to live off the dole because they're better off there. So, what are your thoughts around, some of these ideas that, are usually used as counterpoints to, the arguments that we're trying to make here? And maybe Raping, you can share
so
with us.
I have been thinking about this. I'm always wondering what is the horse and what's the cart, right? A lot of times we think of money sustainability as the horse, and then we are very limiting. We only have this amount of money, so we can only do so much. But if we really put the person as the horse, right, and we know what their needs are, then we will go find money for that. I know that sounds a bit idealistic, but I think it's really a change in thinking towards the well-being of our citizens.
Okay, so so I thought that was quite a fun exercise for us to do, and as you can see, already just asking this really simple question really brings to all sorts of different ideas. It's not the most obvious one. So obviously we had two education policies that came out, and maybe that's not a surprise given our backgrounds and given the fact that we've all got kids. What was the count just now? How many? 4?
I got 4, so 3 for you.
Yes,
three.
I got one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
14.
So this is how we came out. Our education system has failed us, unable to do maths.
Yes.
Top in PISA rankings. But
Where's my calculator?
where's my phone?
No, not just the adding, but divide by 5. Wait.
Oh yeah. Well, I can guarantee it's way above TF,
That's
replacement
right.
TFR.
That's right.
This is how you work for Singapore.
2+3.
That's right. So the Workers' Party sort of candidates and team, we really put our money where our mouth is, and we believe in parenthood. So we're not just...
Right group for this job.
So when we do exercises like this, I think some of the beauty of it as well is to see, the diversity of ideas. So when you talk about inclusion, it's also about, being open to kind of something out there, and that's why, the question was deliberately, if I'm the emperor. It's amazing. I tell you, every time, we do something, we don't always use the same exercise, but, when you have a group of, a larger group, it becomes even more fun because the questions that come out, and it's completely anonymous, and there's no pressure as well. So the questions that come out, and residents will just shout out, and that to me is the beauty of how a community should come together. I think that was something that was...
That sort of brings me back to the PSLE, right? It's like, you didn't have a 10-year series and model answers where the kids could go and say,
exactly.
if you are asked, what is the thing you want to change, then you can give this answer and here's the model answer.
And this is when you get how many points.
Yeah.
Exactly, points.
That's right.
You
former teacher.
how old PSLE is?
Oh,
I don't know.
I think it's coming to 50 plus already.
Yes.
So think about it. PSLE have been around 50 plus. Have the way we tested our children changed?
And has the world changed?
Oh no, that's precisely the point. That
So why are we testing them?
Correct.
Right.
So that was my point exactly. When we look at our system, and Fadli was actually alluding to the point, yes, world class, PISA, well done. But the truth is when academics look at PISA and they start looking at it and they realize, one, you can game the system, right? Two, you can game the system. Can you game PSLE? Yes, it has been proven, right?
10-year series, a classic gaming of the system.
Tuition. Why do
Absolutely.
some tuition center operate so well? Because they can train you to answer to the question.
And the more money parents have, the more they can throw at this thing to get that outcome.
Yes.
And
It's,
that,
it's a complete arms race.
I-
yeah.
I-
Fadli, yeah.
I think that we also have to look at it as at the underlying philosophical understanding of education. I think our education system was first formed in the period where we were probably going through the industrialization process, and I think it became much more important to sort people out, into certain categories. I think we should go back to a more fundamental understanding of education, which is to develop human beings. And I don't think that human beings is about jumping through hoops. So you go through this hoop, PSLE, then you go through this hoop, O level, and then you go through this hoop, A level. Rather, we should think about what do people need to survive in this world, to adapt to a changing world, and that requires a fundamental thinking in which we should. First steps, of course, is the PSLE and all that. That's how we should rethink about how we approach education.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's actually Fadli made a really good point about the industrialization and how we've actually moved. Because, again, industrialization was obviously sorting people into boxes. This person does this person does that person does that, and how you actually come together. But I think, the research in systems has really, really moved on since.
Just to add on to Jasper's point, right? I mean, our system is very good to train our children to be exam smart, but are we training them to be life smart? Right? Because, in life, you really have to deal with different things, challenges, setbacks, and so forth. So I think that's really a missing piece.
yeah.
Sure.
Can I just add
Yeah,
to
go for
what
it.
you have just said and what Fadli said about the purpose of education? I have known how to do well in exams. Right? I've been an exam smart student for the longest time. But I can tell you, later in my life, in my 40s, I started realizing all the gaps in my education, right? And where I started plugging those gaps was really through just expanding my reading. And I don't mean just reading management books. It started with reading a lot of fiction, all right? And I can say that the fiction over the last 10 years has changed my life. It just brings back the importance of bringing back reading to our kids, from early on right up, and having perhaps even a national reading program, because in the world we are moving into, the broader your mind is, the better you will perform, because you cannot outcode, outsmart the AI, but what the AI cannot do is what's in your heart and what makes you human. And it's back to your point about living a good life, thriving, thinking, and no amount of exams can get you there.
I think what this 50 plus years of PSLE, O-level somewhat, but it's usually PSLE, have created a horrid arm race where if you don't burn the money, you don't play the game, right? And the same concept, unfortunately, when DSA started, mirrored. Do you want to get in through art? Let me teach you art lessons. Let me teach you how to build a portfolio that works so that it's accepted. Oh, you want to get in through badminton?
Yeah.
Let's have lessons. 3 times a week, 4 times a week, $70 an hour. Right. So now then the question is this. What are we trying to do here? What's the outcome do we want? And what type of education do we want to deliver to our children? Right. Is it going to be one where we say that, okay, outcome is all that matters, make sure you get in there, let me burn the money? Or are we going to say that it's a longer journey, right? Take a longer view, right? Let us get there as a nation, right? And this is my heartfelt.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's very interesting. So, we say that there's an arms race happening, and of course, this will benefit people with more resources, not just money, but in terms of time.
Yes.
And of course, all of this is usually linked to, being of a higher SES group.
What occurs to me sometimes is this: if I were born today to my parents, I would not be where I am.
Same thoughts.
Okay? Exactly. Because there's no way my parents could have afforded to send us to tuition. There are many, many people out there, right, who want the best for their kids, who have kids who are prepared to work hard, but you just don't have that extra fuel of the resources to put in that. And that's something we really need to grapple with as our society so that we improve the opportunities, right?
So when I was in NIE, one of the questions we were posed was equity versus equality. When you have equality, everybody have the same starting line, right? We put everybody, we make sure that everybody comes in, everybody get on the starting line. If you're 7 years old, you're 8 years old, everybody comes into primary 1. Same starting line. I don't care what you do, we're gonna hold a 100-meter race. Everybody run, right? The schools will provide shoes, everybody wear the same size shoes. I don't care, if you're rich enough, you buy your own shoes, you can wear sports shoes, you can wear sprinter shoes. Run. The kids with no shoes, don't worry, I give you a size 10 shoes. I got size 4 feet. How am I gonna run? Then the next thing is, okay, those with resources, let's give you a head start. 100 meters race, I'm gonna place you at 20-30 meter mark. Okay, everybody ready? Everybody is in the race, it's equal. Where's the equity? You get a guy wearing unfitting shoes running against somebody with a head start and sprinter shoes.
And maybe
Bang,
running against
run.
someone who's already had parents who have sent him for training before he even gets to the starting line.
Correct. This was a question that was posed to me when I was a trainee teacher, and we thought about it. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, 100% of the teachers there, everybody will say, I want equity. Our teachers love our kids. If not, you won't be in this line. Why would you become a teacher if you hate teaching? Right? It doesn't make sense. All of us are there. But the policy and the structure have to support this. It's not a manpower issue, it's not a teacher issue. It is a structure, it's a policy issue we need to look at and actually drive.
I think if we look at education as a development of human potential, right? I think that, as you pointed out rightly, people who are richer have more resources to pump in, so they choose. But I think if we take the development of human potential, that every one of us has that ability to achieve the best of our abilities, right? How important kids make up is actually time. And that's why we have a lot of these things called late bloomers and all that, because I think given a certain amount of time, we can all reach our potential if we are able to. But what the PSLE does is to sort of shorten the gauge of our potential to a much lower, younger starting point.
Of course, again, education, clearly everyone here is very passionate about education and, using education or the right education system to be a proper social enabler and leveler. So I think we touched on topics to do with, equity, and Jasper brought up equity versus equality. And, I think, we also mentioned, whether or not we can have systems that work for different, again, we talk about different strengths and, how some people thrive within a more formal and more structured system. They probably, are not so comfortable dealing with a bit more fluidity. And again, I think, most parents can also, when for example, when they abolished, mid-year examinations, my understanding was that lots of tuition centers or private providers then stepped into the fray for parents who became very worried about, how am I supposed to know how my kid is doing? But I think, if we take a step back from that, maybe instead of just focusing on this whole education system and how we're going to use it to promote equality and equity, I think it's also important to see why do parents react like that? Rather than just saying, oh, parents shouldn't react like that, we should actually think, why are parents reacting in this way? So this is a much broader point, and I think sometimes it's worth stepping back from the field or the actual sphere of policy that we're looking at to say, what is it about our society, our economy, the structure of it that is making parents, go, oh no, if I don't have PSLE, how is my child going to be, sorted? Or how do I know how well my child is doing? And what's driving this?
Yesterday at my introduction, I pulled out a title of Teo Yu Yen's book, right? This is what inequality looks like. And it resonated with me a lot, and I think it resonates with most parents. I want my children better than me. This is an overarching, subject or topic or impetus in our heads as parents, right? We always want our kids, our children to be always better than us, right? You want the best for your kid, you pump in resources, you pump in time, and it is pure out of love for your kids. And you want to do whatever you can for them. Now, then the question is this: what does better mean? Maybe we need to reframe what we mean by better, and we start to redefine better as different. Better means what? I want my kids to go to GP. I want my kids to do well in exams. But is that really the end goal? And I think that's where we need to come in. We need to redefine that. We need to actually, from a policy level, maybe shape it in a certain direction to say that, can we talk about this honestly? Do we really need our kids to have 8 A1s, 9 A1s? Do we need our kids to have 4-pointer for PSLE? Right? Do we need that? And if that is not the outcome, what is?
Parents are just responding to the incentive structure. You change the incentive structure, parents will change. You can say the 4 points or the 8 A1s don't matter, but when it comes to university entrance, when it comes to government service or admin service, sort of appointments, do you look at that? Do you ask for the result? Or do you have a more holistic, sort of way of assessing the potential of the candidates who are applying?
I mean, it's a very small thing, but I think if you log into your SingPass,
Yes.
it has your I think
good
A levels and I think even your
O-levels
O-levels and
O-levels,
A-level results. I mean, if you do
O-levels.
A-levels, but
It's
yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
It's still there. I mean, you had to press the button to hide it. No, but I think just
Well, in
that
my case,
gap
I better
really.
go and hide it.
No, but the fact that the fact that it's there probably also adds to that. So
All
it's
of
just
that
little,
conditions
yeah.
us, right? It tells us the system is looking at it.
When the rewards for success is so high and when the penalties for failure is so high, right, the pressure of people to succeed or not fail becomes high, and this translates lah. So sometimes parents always tell kids, oh, if you don't study you become this, or you don't study you become that. The pathway to success or failure is there. And I think it was laid out because of our developmental model, because we had an industrial development model which was very intent on sorting out people. So when you have like a general one route to success, then it becomes imperative for people to go through that one route, and success or failure is an important thing. So the pressures on parents are necessarily high. Going forward, we must be comfortable to feel that there are different ways to succeed which are beyond control, like things that are unexpected. Even this is like in the US, right? You have so much entrepreneurs and all that. They don't like to be, the thing which you can see is that they don't like to be controlled. They want to chart their own paths. And if you have a culture of control, it only circumscribes these ways of success.
Yeah, I mean, Lue Ping, I don't know if it's someone from your professional background, maybe you want to share some thoughts about why is there this, why do people feel the need for control?
I think in general, when we have a sense of certainty, right, it really does give us security and comfort. So having this sense of control really is good for our own psychological well-being. I just want to add on to that point about the larger system level, which actually adds to Fadli's point and Jasper's point as well. I mean, a lot of the parents that I meet, they have very, very simple wish for their child, which is really, I just want them to be able to be independent, do well, and survive, right? But when they see that, wow, HDB prices so high, right? Everything is getting more and more expensive. Then they have to start worrying about their child, right? Which job is the one that allows you to have that, at least that basic income to live a dignified life in society? But ironically, then we actually push them forward, push them very hard, and then they can't cope, and things actually falls apart. So I really believe that besides, again, just going to the person and saying, oh, you have to cope better, you have to be more resilient, we really need to create our system in such a way that it helps people to thrive and to flourish. So, I mean, there's a sort of quality improvement type of saying that says that the system is perfectly designed to produce the result it's designed to produce, right? So if that's the structure that we have, we can't blame parents for pushing their kids to do so. If your child loses marks in an exam, right, the worst that can happen is they fail the exam. But if your child loses his self-confidence, right, he will fail in life.
I think there's a certain level of self-awareness also that I mean, it's not always the easiest thing, right? I mean, everyone's got kids. When your kid pushes back and then you lose control of the kid, I mean, the kid doesn't do what you do. That is extremely triggering. So again, I think it's also understand that, that
Speaking
is...
from personal experience.
Oh yeah, lots of personal experiences.
I've reached radical acceptance.
Zen.
But look, I mean, we're human. Everyone, everyone makes mistakes. As parents, we mess up all the time. And I think it's also important. That's why I think we talked about earlier about the repair. Repair is so important as well, but it's also, repair is probably the hardest thing that you can do. Is to go to someone and say, you go to your child and say, I did that. I'm sorry. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Earlier, I think Lue Ping had some ideas and thoughts about how we measure success and in terms of outcomes. And I think there's quite a big part in the manifesto was talking about social outcomes or like beyond GDP. So maybe you want to share about some of your thoughts on that.
Okay, so I think for the longest time, we have just been focusing on economic outcomes, like what I say, GDP, right? But how about social KPIs, as I think you mentioned in one of your budget speeches as well, right? So in fact, it's actually something that is quite easily measurable. In fact, we already have a scale for that. It's called the Singapore Mental Wellbeing Scale, right? So basically, it covers 5 domains, right? Self-esteem, cognitive efficacy, right? Resilience, social intelligence, and emotional intelligence. So these 5 actually cover a broad swath of social measures that we really want to consider. So I think beyond just really looking at how well we do in terms of productivity, I think at the end of the day, what is really important is what is the well-being of our people, right? Are they really happy? Are they really confident? Right? Do they live a meaningful life? So I think really we should really consider having a developmental dashboard with our social KPIs as well. And as I mentioned, we already have a scale. It's whether we want to use it or not.
Yeah, I mean that would be definitely one of the. I mean, for sure, I would like to see that scale, as one. And I think the key as well is to kind of having it all in one place. And when we actually report our headline figures every year, the only thing that we really see, or every quarter, what's the GDP growth?
Correct.
So I think, having some things along with that, it's really just a signal as well that, this is who we are as a nation.
One of the things that the WP is proposing is the social protection framework, which has produced by the ILO. And this measures other things such as, for example, how much the vulnerable populations in our country has managed to improve themselves, and it provides KPIs for the governments and for people to assess the success or failure of social programs. Coming back to our education discussion, education is in a way epiphenomena. Parents react to the social realities and social structures in which we live in, and if our social structure is predominantly assessed by the success or failure is predominantly assessed by GDP, then the pressure to succeed and fail within that metric is increased.
A very wise friend shared this with me. He called it seasons of life, right? So each of us enter life and we go through the seasons of life: birth, growth, youth, marriage, becoming a parent, illness, old age. We go through the seasons of life, but the truth is, each person will be at different stage than others, and our loved one on top, our parents and our children, come in at different stages as well. And from a social development perspective, from your own development perspective, when it hits you at the different stages, I give you a perfect example: illness, right? An illness happened to somebody you love. Let's say, for me personally, both my parents were very sick when I was very young. When I was in my late teens, my mom had cancer, my dad had kidney failure. When it hit us, right? How do we manage? What do we do about it, right? And my friend shared his experience because his dad was at that stage, and everybody at different stages, because we are different. But how do we manage it? How can the government come in to help? How can we ensure that the welfare of the family is taken care of? Illness is not short term. Illness is a long-term process. When somebody is sick and in their last stages, do you say, I want to focus on my career? Do I just want to continue earning? Because you still have to earn an income to feed your family,
They
your
have no
children.
choice, right? For many people, they don't have the privilege of taking that time out.
Correct. So what can we do? And to be honest, I'm very heartened that the Workers' Party took a stance, right? That from a caregiver side, they are a very neglected group of people. They need to be taken care of. They need to provide the support. And it is unpaid work. But to us from a mental well-being, my biggest regret in life, I did not spend enough time with my dying father and my mother. My biggest regret in life. If we are able to actually provide that support for them to, okay, it's okay, take the sabbatical, take care of your family, spend that critical few months or years with them, come back to work. Let's do integration after that. And we are able to do that and provide the support. I think that is what is needed. And how do we benefit? We benefit because we have that talent pool that is ready to be recycled in and prop up. We talk about manpower shortages. This is a key group of manpower shortage. 200,000 if I count correctly.
Actually, there was an old figure. I believe my understanding was that the new figures. I mean, we don't. Again, this is the gap in my mind because we don't have yearly updates. We don't have official measurements. So I think there was a figure over 1 billion estimated to be the value, the economic value of unpaid caregiving. But again, this is done by it's not an official government figure. It's not a public.
It doesn't make its way into the headline GDP figures.
No,
but
precisely.
It's absolutely valuable work, and it's something that, as a society, we must support.
And again, this is in the manifesto. Calling for more. Firstly, to better measure how our caregivers spend their time. And also, secondly, this is just getting down to the nitty-gritty, but to really institute a family care leave policy, so that yes, at the moment, young parents of young children are appreciative that we do have, childcare. So, but I think it goes beyond that because our society is changing, and with the aging demographics, again, not everyone can afford to give up their jobs. Or if they do afford to give up their jobs, then and think about the effect on retirement adequacy, because usually it's women and unmarried women are the ones who take on the huge burden of this care. So I think we've come to the end of our session. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. That was an excellent conversation. And again, I think it was very clear to me, the amount of passion and the sort of how strongly everyone here really felt about the ideas and, the principles and the reason and the sort of why it is so critical that we have inclusion and equality baked into the fabric of all of our policies. It cannot be, it just cannot be just a soundbite or, it cannot just be terms, but it really has to be properly integrated and embedded in, in the whole system and all our policies. To be honest, these topics of these values and ideas of inclusion and equality are just so important, especially when we're faced with uncertain times. Because I think COVID, the wars and Ukraine wars and all the other conflicts raging, and now trade wars that are raging around the world have really shown that it is always the most vulnerable groups are the ones that are most adversely affected by this. So I think it's something that we really cannot forget, and we cannot let go of, even if we worry about what's going on around us. So over the years, in the last term in Parliament, the Workers' Party has actually pursued many of these policies and ideas in what we hope to be a better and more equal future for Singapore. And hopefully, with your support, we'll be able to continue doing so. And with your support, we hope to be able to continue working for Singapore. Thank you and have a good evening.